Hello again. Today's drawing has me pretty excited. Yes, a drawing of Logan, played by Hugh Jackman, and there'll be more in the film later. First, I should draw your attention to the trace lines. You should notice there are very few trace lines. And as I mature as an artist, I'm tending to shift away from a heap of trace lines. This makes the drawing quicker at the start, but probably a lot longer in the end. And it results in slight deviations, so if you are going for realism, you really want to get enough trace lines in. For this drawing, I traced in the eyes, some shirt and jacket details, the curve of the nose, the hairline, and a few more prominent patches of hair. I'm using my Faber Castell Polychromos set of 60 pencils. I am supplementing the set with a light flesh pencil, as the medium flesh is often too intense. I also use Inktense blocks and the white and black Prismacolor Premier pencils. I start on the eyes. It's hard to tell what color they are in the reference. I decided to make them a greenish blue, just because I felt like it. And I didn't go as dark as the reference. I then start shading in the face. I am working with several browns and flesh colored pencils. The lightest flesh is light flesh. Then medium flesh, sanguine, Pompeian red, and middle cadmium red. For the browns, we start with raw umber, burnt ochre, some use of burnt sienna, then Van Dyke brown and walnut brown. I didn't use too much burnt sienna as I found it just wasn't the right brown for this image. I'm using the smooth side of Fabriano hot press Studio Watercolor paper, starting out with some very light layering, really trying to avoid going too dark in the beginning. This is mostly because of the lack of trace lines, so I really want to flesh things out and make sure I have all the details in the right areas before I start getting too dark. Also, I'm heading into uncharted territory as I feel I really haven't worked on a portrait that is this difficult. Lots of details, plus the messy hair and a fuzzy beard. I've filled in the eyes, nose, and most of the face. I'm now adding a few highlights for the hair and beard. For the sunlit hair highlights, I use Naples yellow and dark Naples ochre. At this point, I feel I have the easy part of the drawing in a good state, and now I need to move on to the more challenging sections. I tend to be hesitant when adding in the hair, lips, and beard. So I will hop from one section to another, working it in a bit, analyzing how it looks, and then often I will go back to adding more layers to the face. For a challenging drawing, layers is the way to go, and really light layers, no hard pressing. For the hair, I don't have trace lines, so my plan is to wing it. I just want hair to look somewhat like the picture. I realize now I need to fill in the ear before continuing with the hair. Again, I work with my flesh and brown tones for the ear. Trace lines would have been great here, as the ear took a very long time to complete. For the overexposed sections, I blend cream and light flesh. When choosing reference images for portraits, it is nice to get a slightly angled face shot with some contrast, but this image has too much ear. I spend a considerable amount of time trying to get the right tones for the ear, layering several times. In the end, it doesn't look too bad, at least good enough that I can continue on with the hair. I use Van Dyke and walnut brown for the darkest hair sections. These are the darkest browns in the 60 set, and you really need to layer them to get an impressive brown color. I also use warm gray 5, raw umber, and black in the hair. I tried adding white and cream highlights, but decided to stick with the Naples yellow and ochre. The little bit of burnt sienna that I added to the hair also didn't give the desired result. Back to layering the face. With a bit of the hair filled in, I can start to really darken up the face, but again, no hard pressing. A few comments on the film. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. I was really excited to see this film. Liked the reviews that I read, and was looking forward to a crushingly depressing end to Wolverine. I was hoping it would be the best film I watched all year, and it almost lived up to my expectations. Keep in mind, I do have high standards and I can be overly critical, except when it comes to my own crappy drawings. Hugh Jackman was amazing, as was Patrick Stewart. The film itself had a few missing gaps that they tried to fill you in on, but a prequel to this film might have been useful. On the disappointing side was the bad guys. None of them shined through or instilled a sense of fear or danger. Professor X also played a very minor role in the film. For his last film, I think they could have brought out something a little more impressive. But I guess that was a major point of the film. Professor X just wasn't who he used to be. In many parts of the film, I struggled with the sound. I just couldn't understand what a character was saying. I'll just have to wait for the Netflix version to come out so I can view the subtitles. Overall, a good film. Definitely worth watching if you haven't seen it yet. Back to the drawing. With the hair filled in, I now need to focus on the mouth and beard, slowly layering things to get them a bit darker. You may also see me pull out a gray pencil and fill in some of the shirt reference lines. With the outline of the beard, I can now start to position various details of the shirt. I use a gray that is dark enough that I can see, but not so dark as to affect the final image. I spend a long time filling in the mouth area, slowly darkening it up. I should mention I use magenta for the darkest part of the lips, and mauve for the dark patches under the eyes. At this point I'm still trying to avoid filling in the beard, so I pull out the Inktense blocks and decide to fill in the jacket. Why Inktense blocks? Because it's far easier to fill in the tooth of the paper with the Inktense blocks than it is with colored pencil. It just makes things so much easier and saves the pencils. I apply one layer of ink black, I dry the paper with a hairdryer, then apply a second layer, this time using dark purple. I use a bit of charcoal gray for the lighter sections of the jacket. For the shirt, I apply some Sicilian yellow and really try to water it down. I'm really going for just an off-white color here. Once I've applied Inktense to the shirt, I dry the paper again and go back to darkening up the face. I want to darken the eyes a bit, add a little more depth, but I inadvertently add too much black to the lower eyelid of the left eye. At some point, I attempt to fix this with the Prismacolor white and just smear things into a horrible looking gray for the white part of the eye. They are gray in the reference image, but they actually have more red than gray, so I'm definitely unhappy with this result. Finally, I start on the beard section. First by layering in some raw umber, mainly as a background skin tone beneath the beard. I then start to add in the darker sections of the beard using black, Van Dyke brown, walnut brown, and warm gray. For the lighter sections of the right side of the beard, I have kept with the Naples yellow and dark Naples ochre. I move back to the jacket, this time applying a layer of deep indigo from the Inktense blocks. At this point the jacket is darkened up quite nicely and it's hard to notice any of the brush marks. I then move on to finishing up the jacket and shirt with colored pencils. I use blacks and grays to add in the details for the jacket and make things a more uniform color. You may notice that I switch between a Prismacolor Scholar, Prismacolor Premier, and Faber Castell Black depending on how dark I want it shaded. For the shirt section, I wanted to lighten up some areas, so I've applied a layer of Inktense white, then gone over it with a blend of light aquamarine and white. Putting the final touches on the shirt, I'm fairly happy with the end result, as it definitely looks like Logan. I certainly could have spent a lot more time darkening up the hair and beard, but I really didn't have the time if I wanted to get this posted before going back to work. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.